She's dressed simply, a retail worker's uniform still on, the name tag from Target visible on her shirt. This is 24-year-old Rebecca Miller, and she's here suing her own mother for $5,000. But that's not what makes this case unforgettable. As Judge Judy begins asking questions, trying to understand why a daughter would take her own mother to court, Rebecca says something that makes the entire courtroom go silent. She reveals that her mother stole her identity, opened credit cards in her name, and destroyed her credit score before she even turned 21. The room thinks they understand now. It's a simple identity theft case. Sad but straightforward. Mother pays back daughter, case closed. But then Judge Judy asks one question, one single question that uncovers something so devastating, so completely heartbreaking, that you can hear people in the gallery trying to hold back tears. What Rebecca reveals and what her mother admits to on that stand doesn't just leave everyone speechless. It exposes a truth about sacrifice, desperation, and impossible choices that will make you question everything you thought you knew about right and wrong. Before we reveal what Judge Judy discovered that turned a simple theft case into one of the most emotional moments in courtroom television history, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now. We're racing towards 600,000 subscribers, and 97% of you watching this video still haven't subscribed to Judge Stories. If this story about family, betrayal, and the kind of truth that changes everything moves you, leave a comment below and tell us what you think. Because by the end of this video, you'll understand why Judge Judy's decision in this case wasn't about money or credit scores, or even justice in the traditional sense. It was about understanding that sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones who loved us enough to destroy themselves trying to save us. Here's a question that will stay with you long after this video ends. If someone you loved committed a crime to keep you alive, would you forgive them? Because what happened in that courtroom proves that the line between victim and villain isn't always as clear as we want it to be. And sometimes the truth doesn't set you free. It breaks your heart. Tuesday afternoon, 1:30 p.m., Judge Judy's courtroom in Los Angeles. Judge Judy enters with her signature brisk walk, black robe sharp and pressed, reading glasses already positioned as she reviews the case file. The bailiff's voice cuts through the quiet courtroom. Rebecca Miller versus Sandra Miller. Plaintiff is suing defendant for $5,000 in damages related to identity theft and credit fraud. Rebecca approaches the plaintiff's podium, and up close you can see she's been crying for hours, maybe days. Her Target uniform is wrinkled like she came straight from a shift. Her name tag reads Rebecca with a smiley face sticker next to it, the kind managers give out for good customer service. Her hands won't stop trembling as she sets down a thick folder of papers. Her hair is pulled back in a messy ponytail. No makeup, dark circles under her eyes that speak to sleepless nights. She's young, barely out of college age, but she carries herself with the exhaustion of someone much older. Then her mother, Sandra Miller, approaches the defendant's podium, and the contrast is striking. Sandra is 52 years old, thin to the point of frailty, wearing a faded sweater that's seen better days and jeans that don't quite fit right anymore. But it's her face that tells the story. Deep lines of worry etched around her eyes and mouth, gray hair that looks like it turned that color too soon, hands that shake slightly, not from nerves but from something else, something chronic. She doesn't look at her daughter. She stares straight ahead at Judge Judy with an expression that's part shame, part resignation, part something that looks almost like relief. Judge Judy looks from mother to daughter, and even she seems taken aback by the tension in the air. Miss Miller, she addresses Rebecca. You're suing your mother for $5,000. That's not something I see every day. Tell me what happened. Rebecca's voice cracks immediately. Your Honor, when I turned 18, I tried to apply for my first credit card to start building credit for college. I was denied. I didn't understand why, so I pulled my credit report and discovered that I had $12,000 in debt across 4 different credit cards that I never opened. Her hands gripped the podium tighter. My credit score was 487. I hadn't even had a credit card yet, and I was already destroyed financially. Judge Judy's expression hardens. And you discovered your mother opened these accounts? Yes, Your Honor. All 4 cards were opened when I was between 16 and 18 years old. My mother used my social security number, forged my signature, and maxed out every single card. Judge Judy turns to Sandra, and her voice has that edge that signals she's not playing games. Mrs. Miller, did you open credit cards in your daughter's name without her permission? Sandra's voice is barely a whisper. Yes, Your Honor, I did. Did you forge her signature? Yes. Did you max out those cards knowing she would be responsible for the debt? Sandra's eyes fill with tears, but she doesn't look away from Judge Judy. Yes, Your Honor, I did all of it. Judge Judy leans back in her chair, her eyes moving between mother and daughter with the sharp assessment of someone who's seen thousands of cases, but knows this one is different. So let me make sure I understand this correctly. Mrs. Miller, you systematically stole your daughter's identity while she was still a minor, opened multiple lines of credit, accumulated $12,000 in debt, and left her with destroyed credit before she was even old enough to vote. Sandra nods, tears streaming down her face now. Yes, Your Honor, that's exactly what I did. Judge Judy's voice rises slightly. And you're admitting this? Just like that? No excuses, no explanations. Sandra wipes her eyes with a tissue that's already shredded from use. What excuse could I possibly give, Your Honor? I stole from my own daughter. There's no explanation that makes that okay. Rebecca is crying silently at her podium, but there's anger mixed with the sadness. Your Honor, can I tell you what this did to me? Judge Judy nods. Please, I couldn't get student loans for college because of my credit score. I had to work full-time at Target while taking classes part-time. It took me 6 years to get my associate degree instead of 2. I couldn't get an apartment in my name. I couldn't finance a car when mine broke down. I've spent the last 3 years working with credit repair companies, paying off debt I never created, trying to rebuild something I never even got to build in the first place. Her voice breaks completely. I trusted her. She's my mom. How could she do this to me? The courtroom is silent except for Rebecca's crying. Judge Judy turns to Sandra with an expression of controlled anger. Mrs. Miller, I've seen parents steal from their children before. Usually it's for drugs, gambling, shopping addictions. They're selfish, they're entitled. They think their children owe them. Is that what this was? Were you funding some addiction? Some lifestyle you couldn't afford? Sandra shakes her head, and when she speaks, her voice is steady despite the tears. No, Your Honor, I've never done drugs. I don't gamble. I don't shop. Judge Judy's eyes narrow. Then what did you spend $12,000 on? Sandra takes a deep breath, and you can see her preparing to say something she's been holding inside for years. Cancer treatment, Your Honor. I spent it on cancer treatment. The courtroom goes completely still. You could hear a pin drop. Rebecca's head snaps up, her expression confused and devastated all at once. Judge Judy's face shows the first crack in her stern composure. Explain. Sandra's hands are shaking so badly she has to grip the podium to steady herself. 6 years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. I had insurance through my job, but it was basic coverage. The treatments I needed, the specific chemo protocol my oncologist recommended, it wasn't fully covered. I was looking at $40,000 in out-of-pocket costs. I had $3,000 in savings. I took out the credit cards to pay for treatment because the alternative was dying and leaving my daughter without a mother when she was still in high school. Rebecca is staring at her mother like she's seeing a stranger. You had cancer? Sandra won't look at her daughter, keeps her eyes locked on Judge Judy. Yes, wait. Judge Judy holds up her hand. Mrs. Miller, are you telling me you had cancer, went through treatment, and your daughter didn't know? Sandra finally looks at Rebecca, and the pain in her expression is unbearable to witness. She was 16 when I was diagnosed. She was applying to colleges. She had her whole life ahead of her. I wouldn't put that burden on her. So I told her I had a thyroid condition. I told her the doctor visits were for that. I wore wigs. I timed my worst days for when she was at school or work. I protected her from it. Rebecca's face has gone completely white. Her mouth opens, but no sound comes out. She's gripping the podium so hard her knuckles have turned bloodless. Judge Judy's voice cuts through the shock with surgical precision. Mrs. Miller, let me understand the timeline here. You were diagnosed with cancer when Rebecca was 16. You hid the diagnosis from her. You underwent treatment using credit cards opened in her name. How long did this go on? Sandra's voice is steady now, like confessing is lifting a weight she's carried too long. 2 years, Your Honor. I had surgery, 6 months of chemotherapy and radiation. The credit cards covered what insurance wouldn't pay for. The co-pays, the medications, the special supplements my doctor recommended, the travel costs to specialists. By the time I was in remission, I had maxed out all 4 cards. Judge Judy's expression is unreadable. That careful mask she wears when a case has layers she's still peeling back. And after you were in remission, why didn't you tell your daughter the truth? Why didn't you explain what the debt was for? Sandra finally looks directly at Rebecca, and the guilt in her eyes is devastating. Because by then she was 18, about to start college, and I saw what the debt had done to her credit. I saw her get rejected for student loans. I saw her having to work instead of focusing on school. And I knew that if I told her the truth, she would forgive me. She would tell me it was okay, that she understood, that she was glad I was alive. Her voice cracks. And I couldn't let her do that. I couldn't let her forgive me for stealing her future, even if I did it to stay alive. Rebecca makes a sound that's half sob, half gasp. Mom, how could you not tell me? How could you let me think you just stole from me for no reason? I've spent 3 years hating you. 3 years thinking you were selfish and cruel and didn't care about me at all. Sandra is fully crying now, her thin shoulders shaking. I know, baby, I know. And you had every right to hate me because what I did was unforgivable. I stole your identity. I ruined your credit. I took choices away from you. The fact that I was dying doesn't change what I took from you. Judge Judy holds up her hand, her voice softer now but still commanding. Mrs. Miller, you said you were in remission. Are you still? The courtroom holds its breath. Sandra shakes her head slowly, and it's like watching someone resign themselves to fate. No, Your Honor. The cancer came back 8 months ago. It's in my liver and lungs now. Stage 4. My oncologist says I have maybe 6 months, possibly a year with aggressive treatment. But I can't afford aggressive treatment. I can't even afford the palliative care that would keep me comfortable. I'm on basic Medicaid now. I lost my job when I got too sick to work, and I'm living in a subsidized apartment. She looks at Rebecca with eyes full of unbearable sadness. That's why I didn't fight this lawsuit. That's why I admitted everything immediately. Because my daughter deserves to know the truth before I die. She deserves to understand that I didn't steal from her because I didn't love her. I stole from her because I loved her so much I couldn't bear to leave her alone when she was still just a kid. Rebecca is sobbing openly now, and several people in the courtroom gallery are wiping their eyes. Judge Judy removes her glasses and sets them on the bench, a gesture she only makes in the most serious moments. She looks at Rebecca with an expression that's rare for her. Genuine compassion mixed with the weight of impossible judgment. Miss Miller, did you know your mother's cancer had returned? Rebecca shakes her head, unable to speak. Judge Judy's voice is gentle but firm. Did you know she was dying when you filed this lawsuit? Rebecca finally finds her voice broken and small. No, Your Honor, I had no idea. I just wanted her to acknowledge what she did to me. I wanted her to see how much she hurt me. I wanted. Her voice dissolves into tears. I just wanted my mom back. Judge Judy sits in silence for what feels like an eternity, her eyes moving between this mother and daughter who are both broken in different ways. The courtroom is so quiet you can hear the air conditioning humming. Finally, she speaks, and her voice carries a weight that silences even the breathing in the room. Miss Miller, Rebecca, look at me, please. Rebecca lifts her tear-stained face. I need to ask you something, and I need you to think very carefully before you answer. If you had known 6 years ago that your mother had cancer, that she was using those credit cards to pay for treatment that would keep her alive, would you have wanted her to do it differently? Rebecca's voice is barely a whisper. I would have wanted her to tell me. Judge Judy nods slowly. I understand that. But that's not what I asked. If telling you meant you would have dropped out of school to work full-time to help pay for treatment, if it meant watching your mother die because she couldn't afford care, if it meant carrying that burden at 16 years old, would you have wanted that? Rebecca starts to answer, stops, and fresh tears stream down her face. I don't know, Your Honor. I don't know. Judge Judy's expression softens in a way that's rarely seen. That's an honest answer, and it's exactly the impossible position your mother was in. She didn't know either, so she made a choice. A terrible choice with terrible consequences, but a choice made out of love, not malice. Judge Judy turns to Sandra, and her voice becomes firmer. Mrs. Miller, what you did was legally and morally wrong. You committed identity theft. You fraudulently obtained credit. You saddled your minor daughter with debt she had no ability to consent to or control. Do you understand that? Sandra nods, her face a mask of shame and acceptance. Yes, Your Honor, I understand completely. And if Rebecca had come to me asking for justice, asking for accountability, I would have no choice but to rule in her favor for the full $5,000 and possibly refer criminal charges. Sandra's voice is steady. I understand, Your Honor. I'm prepared for whatever judgment you make. Subscribe to Judge Stories if you believe that sometimes love and crime can exist in the same desperate act. Judge Judy picks up the case file, reviews it one more time, then sets it down with a deliberateness that signals a decision has been made. However, before I make my ruling, I need to understand something else. Miss Miller, Rebecca, when you filed this lawsuit, what did you want? Did you want the money or did you want something else? Rebecca wipes her face with her sleeve, struggling to compose herself. I wanted her to admit what she did. I wanted her to acknowledge that she hurt me. She looks at her mother for the first time since the cancer revelation. I wanted to matter enough that she would fight for me, not just give up and admit everything like I wasn't worth defending. The truth of it hangs in the air like smoke. This was never about money. This was about a daughter who felt abandoned, who felt stolen from, who needed her mother to show her she was worth fighting for. And Sandra, dying and guilt-ridden, gave her daughter the one thing she thought she deserved, a confession. Not understanding that what Rebecca really needed was her mother's love made visible. Judge Judy's voice cuts through the emotion with clarity. Mrs. Miller, stand up, please. Sandra rises slowly, her frail body almost swaying. In 25 years on this bench, I have never, and I mean never, encountered a case quite like this one. What you did was criminal. It was a violation of trust. It destroyed your daughter's financial future at a time when she needed every advantage she could get. Those facts don't change regardless of your motivations. But, Judge Judy continues, and the entire courtroom leans forward, context matters. Intent matters, and the difference between a thief and a desperate mother is the difference between selfishness and sacrifice. You didn't steal from your daughter to buy luxuries. You didn't steal to feed an addiction. You stole to stay alive for her. That doesn't make it legal, but it does make it understandable. Judge Judy looks at Rebecca now, her expression almost gentle. Miss Miller, you came here asking for $5,000 in damages. You're entitled to it. Your mother admitted to the theft. The debt is documented. The damage to your credit is real and quantifiable. If I award you that money, you would be completely justified in taking it. But I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to answer from your heart, not your hurt. Do you want your mother to spend the last months of her life paying you back? Or do you want your mother? Rebecca's face crumbles completely. She looks at Sandra, really looks at her, and seems to see for the first time how thin she is, how gray, how the cancer is eating her alive from the inside. The anger that sustained her through 3 years of credit repair and financial struggle collides with the devastating reality that her mother is dying, has been dying, and chose debt over death because she loved her daughter too much to leave. I want my mom, Rebecca whispers, then louder, breaking. I want my mom. I don't care about the money. I just want my mom. Judge Judy allows the moment to breathe, lets Rebecca's words settle over the courtroom like a benediction. Then she speaks with the kind of authority that comes from decades of seeing human nature at its worst, and occasionally at its most heartbreaking. Miss Miller, approach the bench. Both of you. Rebecca and Sandra walk toward Judge Judy, and for the first time since entering the courtroom, they're standing side by side. Sandra reaches out tentatively, and Rebecca grabs her mother's hand like she's drowning and it's the only lifeline. Their fingers interlock, both of them shaking, both of them crying. Judge Judy looks at them with an expression that's rare in her courtroom. Not judgment, but witness to something profound. I'm going to tell you both something, and I want you to listen carefully. Rebecca, your mother committed a crime. That's a fact. She stole your identity and destroyed your credit. Those are facts. But facts without context are just numbers on a page. The context here is that your mother was faced with an impossible choice: die and leave you orphaned at 16, or live and saddle you with debt. She chose life. She chose you. That doesn't erase what she took from you, but it should inform how you understand what happened. Judge Judy turns to Sandra. Mrs. Miller, what you did was wrong, but I understand why you did it. You were a mother trying to survive for your child. But here's what you got wrong. You didn't just steal money. You stole your daughter's right to choose. You decided for her that debt was better than truth. You decided for her that she couldn't handle knowing you were sick. You decided for her that she was too fragile to carry the burden with you. And in doing that, you didn't just damage her credit. You damaged her trust. Sandra nods, unable to speak. Judge Judy's voice softens slightly. But I also see something else. I see a woman who's been punishing herself far more than any court ever could. You've been carrying the guilt of this for 6 years. You've been dying twice, once from cancer and once from the shame of what you did to save your own life. And that punishment needs to end now. Judge Judy straightens in her chair, her voice taking on the formal tone of judgment. Here is my ruling. The lawsuit filed by Rebecca Miller against Sandra Miller for $5,000 in damages is dismissed. There will be no monetary judgment. There will be